Hello everyone and welcome to Jack's Hobby Space. This is my first video where I'll take you through a little bit about my painting process and some hobby things in general. This is a Troll Slayer that I got from Iron Hills Anvil on Etsy. So without further ado, let's get into it. The first paint I use here is Dark Angel's Contrast. It's from the Citadel line and all the paints in this video are from Citadel. I typically use contrast paints for things like clothing or leather or other things that have a lot of folds and creases in it. I think the pink gives a cool effect and it highlights it very well. I usually don't use contrast paints on flatter surfaces or things that don't have those recesses. It usually is a lot harder to control and dries a lot splotchier. And once the paints are fully covered, the first base level is done. The next paint I use is a Dwarf Flesh Tone. At this point, I'm trying not to paint into anything that's not supposed to be flesh, but I don't really worry about it too much because if it bleeds over, I can always cover it up later. This particular Troll Slayer is going to be a part of a Mordheim warband for an upcoming campaign that I'm doing with my brother. I haven't thought too much about the lore of this character, but I did name him Dwarf Fire Slayer. It's still a working name, so if you think of something better, let me know, but for now it's Thoric. I was really impressed with the quality of this model. This was actually the first model that I got off Etsy or somewhere other than a hobby store or a Games Workshop. The body was fully assembled except for the arms. I was able to choose which weapons I wanted to give this guy from a handful that came in the pack. Naturally, being a Troll Slayer, I had to give him 2 axes. Base coating is always the longest part of the painting process. Personally, I like doing all the detail work like the axes or his jewelry or the war paint or things like that. But it's important to take your time with base coating because in the long run, it will really make the model stand out and be easier on yourself in the future when you're doing those small details. After finishing his arm and his hand, I move on to the feet, and then this layer is done. I'm still not exactly sure where I want the direction of this channel to go. I really enjoyed making this painting video, and think I want to continue doing some more with 40k characters. I'm also interested in filming some battle reports, and specifically this Mordheim campaign that this model is going to be featured in. I think it might be cool to follow the events of Thoric Firestone and see how he fares in Mordheim. One of the most common mistakes I see in new painters or new hobbyers is not watering down your paints. In my experience, thinning down your paints makes a big difference. When you use one layer, the paint tends to glob and cover a lot of the detail. When you use multiple layers, you don't compromise any of that detail, and it brings the model to life more in the end. The next paint I use is another contrast paint called Magma Drop Flame. It's a very vibrant orange and gives the model a nice pop, which is what we're going for because the beard and the hair are so prominent on this model. I tend to be very careful about bleeding the paint into things that aren't the beard or the hair, but like I said earlier, it's really not that big of a deal because we can always cover it up in an extra step. The next step is to just paint all the leather and the axe handles as well. The paint I'm using for this is Xandri Dust. There are lots of different tones and shades that you could use for leathers, but whenever I'm doing a dwarf character, I like to use light leathers. The reason behind that is that I like to do my dwarf characters with a dark shade or a dark wash to kind of give the dwarf a grungy or dirty effect. And if I do that with a darker colored leather, the leather details just get lost in the model. At this point, the base coating is almost all done and the model is really starting to come together. When I was painting the model, I almost forgot about the bread in his little satchel. So I just went over it with a skeleton horde contrast, which gives it a little bit of depth, but nothing too much. Next, I start doing some detail work. I use Retributor armor to pick out all the raised surfaces on the axe heads. I also pick out the gold band on his wrist and in his beard. Unfortunately, I didn't have a still shot that I recorded to show the end result of the gold before I move on to the next step. I decided to put little tattoos or war paint on this guy just to add some color and kind of break up the blank space on his arm. I really liked it on one side, so I thought let's do it on the other. After I added some more paint to both sides of his arms, I decided maybe he needs some more paint on his face as well. With that, all the base coating is done, and I start by doing a wash. The wash I use for this is Agrax Earthshade, and it's a brown base wash and has a really good effect of making it look dirty and grungy, which is exactly what I want for a dwarf character. If you like this video and this character, leave a comment and let me know what I should paint next, or tell me what you think this character's backstory is. After applying that wash, the hair becomes very, very dark. To lighten that up and give a little bit more of a natural orange highlight to it, I do a dry brush with a slightly lighter shade of orange. As I said earlier, the hair and the beard are really the main focus of this character to me, so I wanted to take a little bit more time to make sure they pop. To do this, I add a third layer of orange, which is even lighter than the previous shade for the dry brush. Similarly to the gold, I start by just poking out all of the main raised surfaces, and I go from there. The beard is the same as the hair. I'm just trying to glide my brush over the most raised points so as not to cover the layers we've already built so far. And with that, all that's left is the base. This model was a ton of fun painting, and I can't wait to field it in the Mordheim campaign. Let me know what I should paint next, and if you have any ideas on what this guy's background story should be. As always, thank you for watching Jack's Hobby Space.